Good Monday morning, everyone. I am David, and I am your chaplain here at Progressive, and this is this week's Monday's Motivation. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of remembering and reciting what God has done. Now, we are still reading through the Bible together, and we are now into the book of Judges, and that means we have just finished the book of Joshua. And Joshua is a wonderful book that teaches us is that when Israel got it right, when they followed God's ways of living just like God wanted them to do, well, guess what? They ended up doing what God wanted them to do. They conquered the land. Well, the book of Judges is the complete opposite of that. No one did what was right in the eyes of God, and it led to a lack of being able to do anything prosperous in that land, and they eventually would lose the land. But I want to share a verse with you that shows the start of their bad choices that they made. And in chapter 2, starting with verse 6, I'm going to go through verse 10. This is what it says in the book of Judges. It says, "When Joshua dismissed the people of Israel went each to his inheritance to take possession of the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gaash. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel." This began that spiral of out-of-control acts of Israel, was this generation that arose that did not know God nor knew what God had done. And there's a reason they did not know God and they did not know what God had done, because it was the previous generation. The previous generation did not pass on what God had done and who God was to this new generation. The fathers did not pass on their faith to their sons. And so here's this generation that arose that just didn't know who God was, nor did they even know what God had done, how God had led them out of Egypt, how God had kept them safe in the wilderness for 40 years, how God had driven out the Canaanites from the land of Canaan. They just didn't know about that because they never remembered it nor recited it to the next generation. One of the most important things we have as followers of Jesus is to remember God's grace and to recite it to ourselves and to others. And in that reciting of that, we remember it again. And so it's this cycle that goes on and on. We remember what God has done and we tell others about it. As we went to, it's our kids' spring break this week, and so for this weekend, we went to Georgia, to North Georgia, to Stone Mountain first. And as we were there, man, it was just a perfect day. We got to walk up the mountain and enjoy the sights up there. And it's just the beauty of God's creation, remembering the grace that God has given us in His creation, and then being able to talk about that with our kids, about God creating these things and God giving these things for us to enjoy. But then we went to, on Sunday, we went to the Atlanta Aquarium. And if you've ever been there, it is an amazing, beautiful aquarium. And so you get to see all kinds of fish and aquatic animals and all that. And as I'm watching these things go by, and I mean, these just millions of fish in there, it seems like, I'm just thinking in my head of how creative God is and the grace that He's given us in that part of His creation. But then as we're watching the dolphins and we're watching these just super intelligent animals do their thing, and I mean, they're jumping way out of the water, they're doing all these tricks, they're doing front flips, I mean, they're doing high fives, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm thinking to myself of that they're super intelligent animals, but even though they are extremely intelligent, at the end of the day, they're still just animals. Is that God didn't die necessarily for these animals. God died on the cross. The gospel is for me. Is that although these animals are precious and they're wonderful in God's creation, God had a higher part of his creation, and it was when he put man in his image, when he made man in his image. And that image, when it was broken and separated from God, God came in Jesus to die on the cross for us. That we mean that much to God, and he wants us to be in a right relationship with him. That's remembering God's grace and being able to talk about that with our kids. It is super important for us to remember what God has done and then to recite that, to talk about that with our kids. So, my challenge for you today as you start this week is, what has God done for you? I mean, there's all kinds of general graces that God gave us. Just like for me, just on top of that stone mountain, looking at the creation, or in the aquarium, looking at all the animals that God has created. Those are general graces that God has blessed us with. But then we want to move to, what are the specific graces that God has done for us? How has God loved me? Where have I seen that today? Where has God blessed me today? Why should I be thankful to God today? And so then, who are we going to tell that? Maybe there's some people around your office that you want to tell that. Maybe you just want to think about that and recite those things to yourself today. But I want to challenge you this week to open your eyes to what God is doing around you and through you and in you. And then let somebody know about that. The importance of remembering and reciting what God has done makes all the difference in how we will progress with God tomorrow. Well, I hope you guys will have a safe and awesome and a productive work week.